They smile when you succeed. But deep down, something inside them burns. They don't always roar. Sometimes they whisper. They don't always block your path. Sometimes they dim your light. When you begin to climb, there's a silent burn that starts in the hearts of those around you. You can feel it even if they never say a word. The tension in their voice, the small shift in their eyes, the energy that once encouraged you now quietly resists. Carl Jung believed that this happens because every human carries a hidden side, a shadow. The shadow doesn't just live inside individuals, it moves between them. It's the invisible force that makes a friend uncomfortable when you start improving yourself. It's what makes a colleague joke about your ambition or a family member question your dreams. They don't necessarily hate you. What they hate is what your growth reminds them of, the version of themselves they abandoned. You see, your progress acts like a mirror. Every step forward reflects what others have chosen to avoid. When they see you changing, they must face the truth that they could have changed too. Most people cannot handle that reflection. It threatens the illusion they built to survive. It exposes the difference between who they are and who they could have been. That's why the criticism often comes wrapped in concern. Don't overwork yourself. You're too focused. You've changed. On the surface, it sounds like care. Underneath, it's an attempt to pull you back to their level, because if you keep climbing, their excuses collapse. Your growth becomes proof that they settled. Jung called this projection. When someone refuses to acknowledge their own weakness, they project it onto others. The man who never pursued his goals calls you arrogant. The woman who never took risks calls you reckless. Each word they throw at you is really a confession about themselves. And the more you rise, the louder their confessions become. The shadow doesn't want awareness, it wants safety. It would rather destroy what reminds it of its limits than expand beyond them. That's why even people who love you might wish deep down that you stumble, not because they want your pain, but because your success makes them feel theirs. But here's the paradox. Their resistance is not a sign you're on the wrong path. It's confirmation you're stepping into authenticity. The moment you disturb someone's comfort, you reveal the depth of their own denial. You awaken the part of them that is terrified of change. You become a living symbol of what they fear most: freedom. So when people distance themselves as you grow, understand what's really happening. You've stopped belonging to their psychological world. You've stepped outside the boundaries they built to protect their insecurities, and that separation is necessary. Because true individuation, the process Jung described as becoming yourself, requires walking beyond the expectations of others. You can't shrink to stay loved. You can't pretend to be small to make others comfortable. You will lose people, yes, but what you gain is far greater. You gain self-respect, clarity, and the kind of peace that doesn't depend on applause. Remember this: when someone secretly wants you to fail, they're not trying to destroy you. They're revealing how little they've faced themselves, and the more light you bring, the more their shadows tremble. That's the silent burn you feel around you. It's not your fault. It's proof that you've started to evolve. Every person you meet holds an invisible mirror. When you start changing, disciplining yourself, becoming calmer, sharper, or more focused, you unknowingly alter what they see in that mirror. Suddenly, they don't just see you. They see a reflection of their own unfulfilled potential, their own avoidance, their own forgotten hunger, and for many, that's unbearable. Carl Jung called this projection, but the deeper truth is that growth destabilizes the social balance. Every relationship, every friendship is built on a silent equilibrium. People unconsciously agree on who each person is, who's confident, who's insecure, who's the joker, who's the failure, who's the dreamer. When you start breaking that pattern, you don't just change yourself. You shatter their story about you. It's why, when you start improving, you might hear things like, "You've changed," said not with admiration, but discomfort. It's why people you've known for years start keeping their distance. It's not because they dislike who you're becoming. It's because they can no longer locate themselves beside you. You've become unpredictable, and the human ego fears the unpredictable more than anything. Here's the secret Jung revealed. Most people don't seek truth. They seek psychological safety. They build comfort zones made of familiar identities. And when someone steps outside, it threatens the illusion that safety exists. That's why a man who starts to better himself often loses his old friends. His progress forces them to confront their own stagnation. They say he's changed, but what they mean is, he's reminding me that I haven't. This reaction isn't limited to personal circles. It exists in workplaces, families, even romantic relationships. A partner may unconsciously discourage your ambitions, not because they want to hold you back, but because your ambition highlights their own lack of direction. They feel left behind by your evolution. To protect themselves, they pull you down emotionally, hoping things will return to the old balance. But the truth is, that balance was built on mutual limitation. The mirror effect exposes everyone's internal contradictions. When you begin to transform, you reflect not only light, but also darkness. You make others face their envy, regret, and self-deception. They see in you what they once hoped to be. And because they can't accept that loss, they reinterpret your growth as arrogance. They reframe your discipline as obsession. They call your peace detachment. It's a psychological defense mechanism meant to protect their ego from collapse. But this realization carries power. Once you understand that others react not to you, but to what you represent, their behavior stops feeling personal. You stop trying to convince them. You stop justifying your ambition. You stop explaining your silence. Instead, you begin to respect the discomfort you cause. You see it as the echo of your evolution. Jung once said that the greatest burden a person can bear is the unfulfilled potential of those around them. Because when you choose to grow, you force others to see that the door was never locked. That's why people resist change. They realize freedom was always within reach, and that realization hurts. So, keep walking. Let the mirror tremble. The ones who cannot handle your reflection were never meant to follow your path. Their insecurity is not your problem, it's their invitation to evolve. And whether they accept it or not is no longer your concern, because the truth is this: when your growth triggers others, it's not a sign to stop, it's a sign that you've started to matter. Carl Jung believed that the shadow doesn't only belong to individuals, it also belongs to entire societies. Humanity carries a collective darkness, a subconscious agreement to stay small together. The world praises success on the surface, but underneath, it quietly fears those who rise above the norm. Because when one person breaks free, the illusion of equality shatters. Look around. We claim to celebrate originality, but what happens when someone truly stands apart? They're labeled arrogant, delusional, or too different. Society rewards those who fit in, not those who evolve. It loves the dreamer who never acts, but resents the one who actually builds. That resentment is the collective shadow defending itself, trying to drag the individual back into conformity. Jung warned that this shadow thrives wherever people trade authenticity for belonging. The collective mind prefers obedience to truth, comfort to courage. It wants you predictable, tame, easy to categorize. Because when you stand alone, when you think, work, and live outside its narrative, you remind everyone how fragile that narrative really is. That's why most people unconsciously root against those who transcend the system. The entrepreneur who refuses mediocrity, the artist who won't follow trends, the man or woman who dares to think freely. They become threats, not because they're dangerous, but because they expose the masses' quiet surrender. Their independence proves that the limits most people live under are self-imposed. So the world will test you. It will ignore you, mock you, then call you lucky when you succeed. That's how the collective protects its illusion. But if you understand Jung's insight, you'll see through the game. Every insult, every dismissal, every silent doubt thrown your way. These are signs that you've stepped beyond the herd. You've started to disturb the collective dream. The cost of individuality is loneliness. The reward is freedom. And once you taste it, you'll never want to go back. You'll start seeing how society hides its fear of difference behind the mask of morality and normal life. But the few who keep walking eventually find something extraordinary. Inner peace, untouched by social approval. If you're one of those few, someone seeking truth, not comfort, this space was made for you. Subscribe and stay here. Each idea we explore will help you see what most people refuse to face, because the deeper you go into this knowledge, the harder it becomes to live unconsciously again. By now, you've seen how envy and insecurity operate around you, but Jung would remind you that the real battlefield isn't out there. It's within. Because while others project their shadows onto you, your first instinct is to react, to defend, to prove them wrong. Yet every time you do, you become trapped in the same unconscious game you're trying to transcend. The moment you fight their projections, you validate them. You give energy to what was never truly yours. Jung taught that what you resist persists, and this is the heart of it. The more you wrestle with others' perceptions, the more you start shaping yourself around them. Their opinion becomes your cage. That's why your liberation begins not by confronting them, but by confronting your own need to be seen correctly. When people misunderstand you, let them. When they call your purpose obsession, let them. When they gossip, stay silent. Every time you refuse to play their game, you weaken their shadow's grip over your peace. Because the truth is, no one can define you without your permission. This is where the process of individuation, the journey of becoming whole, truly begins. Jung described individuation as the reconciliation of opposites within the self: light and dark, strength and vulnerability, pride and humility. The more you integrate, the less reactive you become. You start realizing that their envy, their judgment, even their betrayal were never personal. They were projections of their own unacknowledged pain. Once you see this clearly, you start moving differently. You no longer crave validation. You no longer explain your silence. You no longer waste energy on convincing anyone. You begin to operate from an inner authority that doesn't need permission to exist. That's what real strength looks like. Not dominance, but detachment. People will still talk. They'll still try to box you in with their assumptions, but their words will start to sound like echoes from a distant room. Faint, meaningless, disconnected from who you truly are. And in that moment, you'll understand something Jung hinted at in all his work, that freedom isn't found in changing others. It's found in mastering your own perception. So the next time you feel misunderstood, don't fight to prove yourself right. Just watch. Watch how they react. Watch what triggers them, and watch what emotions rise within you. That observation is your power. Because awareness dissolves projection. What once felt like judgment now becomes data. What once stung now becomes insight. And as you rise above those projections, something remarkable happens. You start attracting people who see you as you are, not as they fear you to be. Genuine souls who aren't threatened by your growth, but inspired by it. The noise begins to fade, replaced by silence, focus, and the rare peace of self-possession. That's the quiet strength Jung spoke of, the moment you stop living as a reflection of others and start living as the mirror itself. You no longer react to the world reacts to you. By now, you understand the pattern. People resist your growth, project their shadows, and unconsciously try to pull you back into their comfort zone. But here's the truth Carl Jung wanted you to grasp. None of it can stop you unless you believe it can. Every attack, every doubt, every attempt to make you feel small is only energy. And energy, when understood, can be transformed. Jung wrote that what we deny within ourselves eventually appears outside us as fate. The same applies to those around you. Their resentment, their quiet hope that you fail. It's not destiny. It's displacement. They're wrestling with parts of themselves they can't face. When you learn to see this, something powerful happens. You stop taking their behavior personally. You stop carrying the emotional weight that was never yours. This is the moment real freedom begins, not when everyone supports you, but when their support is no longer required. The mature mind doesn't seek approval. It seeks alignment. You start to act, not because others believe in you, but because you believe in what you're becoming. Their doubt becomes fuel, their silence becomes focus, and their absence becomes space to grow. Every time someone underestimates you, it gives you an opportunity to operate in silence. That's where transformation thrives. In the unseen hours, in the private discipline, in the moments no one celebrates. Jung said that one doesn't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. So when you feel the sting of envy or judgment, don't escape it. Look at it. Let it show you where you still crave validation, where your ego still seeks recognition. Because that awareness is your final initiation. You'll notice something as you walk further. The same people who once doubted you will watch in quiet confusion when you no longer react. They'll sense the shift but won't understand it. You'll seem distant, but it's not arrogance, it's clarity. You've learned that you don't owe anyone your struggle for them to feel safe. You don't owe anyone your smaller self so they can sleep peacefully in theirs. Your path is not to prove them wrong. It's to become so grounded, so internally aligned that even their disbelief bends in your presence. That's what Jung called the integration of the self. A life no longer ruled by shadow, envy, or fear, but by consciousness. So let them doubt, let them whisper, let them watch from the sidelines while you build in silence. Every soul that hopes you fail only gives you one more reason to rise quietly, patiently, and completely. And if you've followed this far, you already feel it. You're not like most people. You think deeper, you question harder, you crave truth more than comfort. So stay here. Subscribe if you haven't, because this space isn't for the ordinary. It's for those ready to see what others refuse to face. Keep rising. Their shadow was never your burden. It was your test, and you've already passed it.